Hi. The film opens and a couple named Natalie and Tyler arrive in the woods for a camping trip. They hike for a while, then stop near some water to set up camp for the night. Tyler proposes to Natalie, and she says yes, and they happily kiss. They spend a romantic night together, then settle in to sleep. In the middle of the night, they hear a slow, steady knocking sound coming from outside. It continues on for a while, and they hear a growling noise. So Tyler gets up to go investigate. Before he goes, he grabs a gun, just to be safe. He carries a light and looks out into the distance. He finds a fallen tree branch, then hears the knocking, so he ventures out further. Natalie begins to grow scared and calls for Tyler, but he now has his gun drawn and starts walking into the woods. She sits still in the tent, then something closes around her and grabs her. She screams loudly, and Tyler sprints back towards the sound. As he runs, he sees the entire tent being dragged away with his fiancée still inside. It disappears and he screams her name, but he doesn't know which direction they went due to the darkness. 1 year later, Tyler has spent 12 months in a psych ward due to hysteria, delusions, and nightmares from the attack. He's finally released and his mother picks him up and brings him home. They talk about what happened and his mom assures him he's not crazy and she believes him. She gives him all the evidence that the police recovered from the scene and Tyler looks through it. He finds their camera from that day and he scrolls through the pictures and he smiles. He then stops on one photo when he sees a huge, mysterious shape in the background. He then looks at a map and marks the location of the photo. Tyler loads up a backpack with supplies and grabs some weapons. With his mother's blessing, he returns to the campsite to look for answers of what happened to Natalie. Armed with a hunting rifle and a revolver, he sets off to retrace his steps. On the hike, he comes across a sign which says the area is owned by a company called Cylon Incorporated. He stops to check his map and finds a strangely large footprint in the mud. He draws his rifle and continues walking through the dense woods. Later, he rests and drinks some water, and we see someone or something is watching him from behind some trees. Tyler comes across a stream and takes off his backpack, leaving it on the ground. He then walks over to the water to refill his bottle. While he kneels on the edge, we see something run past in the distance. Tyler then walks back to his backpack, but he discovers that all his supplies are no longer there. He holds his rifle cautiously, then quickly returns to his truck. With a revolver by his side, he locks the door and sleeps in the vehicle. In the morning, Tyler is woken up by something shaking his truck. He grabs his gun and looks out the window, but it's foggy and he can't see anything. His truck continues to shake and something runs by behind him, but quickly disappears. He looks over his shoulder, then suddenly a rock is thrown at the windshield and it shatters. He hears growling, and a tree branch is thrown into the back seat. He tries to start the car, but it doesn't work, and a large creature slams the front of it. Tyler dives into the passenger seat to grab his gun, then he fires 2 shots out of the window. The attacking creature then runs away after hearing this. Tyler sits in shock with his gun still aimed, and he soon hears footsteps. However, it's just a local hunter named Eli who came to check the scene after hearing the gunfire. He says he saw something run away, but he couldn't make out what it was. He then invites him over to his camp, which is nearby. The two share a beer, and Eli says he recognizes Tyler from all the news stories. Tyler asks about the Xylon Incorporated signs, and Eli says he has no idea, but he's never seen anyone from the company, which is suspicious. He then states he has heard the same knocking noises at night, and heard other strange sounds too. Eli then takes Tyler out to a secluded spot in the woods. He shows him some trees with some bone symbols and says the Chinook people put them up hundreds of years ago. They run for miles in both directions and serve as some sort of perimeter. Eli says that Chinook people believed an unfriendly creature may have lived in this area, and he refers to it as the Big Man. Tyler is skeptical about the rumors and the fairy tales, but Eli says something took Natalie and he wants to see it with his own eyes. The duo return to camp and find a large uprooted tree shoved into Eli's fire pit. They then hear a loud roar in the distance and they both lift their guns. Eli says it's time for some answers and they head in that direction. As they creep through the woods, Tyler reveals that he was an army ranger for 12 years. They keep walking until Tyler hears a roar and sprints towards the sound of it. He runs for a bit, but trips and falls into a small clearing. He looks up and discovers decomposing bodies and bones and some smashed trees. The two look at each other, then suddenly a boulder is thrown at Eli and it breaks his leg. Ooh, Tyler fires 2 rounds, then covers his mouth so he won't scream. He then grabs him by the collar and drags him away to safety. When they're farther away, Tyler realizes he is going to have to set Eli's broken leg. He says he has medical supplies in his backpack, but he left it when they were attacked. He then gives Eli a revolver for while he's gone, and Eli tells him to go fast because cold weather is moving in. Tyler then carefully walks through the woods and arrives back at the clearing. He puts his backpack on and goes to leave, but he notices something in the mud. He picks it up and it's the wedding ring which he gave to Natalie. Tyler cries thinking of his fiancée, but he suddenly hears footsteps behind him. He sees the beast, so he sprints away as fast as possible. He makes it back to Eli and makes a splint for his leg after setting the bone back in place. Tyler then helps him up and the two start moving again. That night they set up camp near a river and surround themselves with fires as they think the creature is afraid of it. At night they talk for a bit, then suddenly hear rustling in the woods. They shine a flashlight out and see something jump behind a tree. Tyler fires 2 shots from his gun and they think it's gone for the night. Some days pass and the guys stay at the camp and try to fish using a makeshift rod. The weather becomes colder, but Eli cannot walk, so they can't risk leaving. One night, Eli tells Tyler that he needs to leave him and escape while he can, but Tyler says he won't abandon him to die. However, as Tyler sleeps, Eli uses a rifle for support and he walks out into the woods. Tyler awakes and finds him missing, and he hurriedly follows the trail on the ground. He treks through the snow and eventually finds the broken rifle on the ground. He then hears screaming and looks up to see the beast, which he now realizes is Bigfoot, feeding on the corpse. Bigfoot sees Tyler and he runs away as fast as he can. The beast catches up and tackles Tyler, and the gun falls away from him. They begin to fight, and Tyler is thrown around and clawed, but he gets out a knife and slices its leg. He then dives for his gun and turns and shoots Bigfoot, and it screams in pain and flees. Tyler holds his arm, which was injured, and it bleeds as he walks. He makes it back to camp and lights a massive fire. Then he stitches up the deep cuts he got from the fight. He ties Natalie's wedding ring around a rope, and he wears it as a necklace for strength. He then creates some makeshift weapons such as a spear, and he arms himself heavily. Tyler then hikes back to Eli's original camp and finds his truck there. He uses the battery to set up some lights, and he begins to prepare some traps. He sets up a flare attached to a branch, and he sprinkles gasoline around the ground and the car. Once he's ready, he gets inside Eli's truck and honks the horn to attract the Bigfoot. He then waits silently, and eventually Bigfoot appears and he sees its shadow through a tent. He turns and stabs it with a spear, and the creature screams in rage. It chases him and Tyler dives into the truck. Bigfoot begins to lift it up and the car is flipped on its side. It then reaches its claws at Tyler and drags him out as he tries to crawl away. Tyler is picked up and choked as the Bigfoot stares directly into his eyes. He is then thrown to the ground and he picks up an axe. The two fight and Tyler is injured, but he manages to get a good strike in the stomach. Bigfoot throws him to the ground and he picks up his revolver and shoots it. The beast falls to his knees and slumps over, and Tyler spots a propane tank lying next to him. He shoots the tank and it begins to leak. Then he lights a flare too. He curses at Bigfoot, then slams the flare to the ground, and the whole area ignites into flames from the gasoline. The flames reach the propane tank and this causes a massive explosion. Bigfoot's entire body catches on fire and he runs off into the woods as he roars in agony. Tyler gets some flames on his jacket, but he's able to snuff them out. He watches as the creature disappears, then he falls to his knees from exhaustion. Later, we see a man driving down the road, and Tyler limps and passes out in front of him. The man rushes to his side and calls for help. Tyler then wakes up in a hospital with his injuries all stitched up. The nurse tells him he's been out for a while and will need to rest for a long time. He says he's not crazy, and she says she believes him about Bigfoot. A man then enters the room and introduces himself as Jackson Wells. He says he too has seen monsters, so he knows the Bigfoot exists. Tyler says he killed Bigfoot, but Jackson is not convinced. Finally, they tell him they are part of a team and they are recruiting new members to kill these monsters.